when masculine and feminine energies can cohere, can work together without collapsing, that is polarity integration. And we talked about previously on this Polarity series about synchrony. How synchrony is basically the dance, the dynamic, rhythmic exchange between these two poles. And it is what allows for creation or any kind of creativity on a cosmic level, on our artistic level, on a biological breathing level. We require synchrony, attraction, repulsion, tension to be constantly in flow. This is synchrony. But here, integration is synchrony in the long term. It is synchrony in a sustainable manner. So if synchrony is the dynamic between the masculine and the feminine, integration is the structure, the architecture that allows, that sustains that synchrony, that dance between these two poles in the long term. On an individual level, this means that the pillars, the functional pillars of the masculine and the feminine, which we talked about before, are not severed. They are all flowing inside that same system or inside that same individual. The four pillars: containment, stillness, structure, direction, receptivity, expression, flow, radiance, all of those are flowing internally. They're not severed. This means that for polarity integration to occur on an individual level, shadow work and shadow integration, which we talked about before as well, is required, is a must. You cannot have polarity integration in yourself if one of the poles or one or several pillars of that pole is in the shadow somewhere. And when you do have that integration of the shadow, which leads partially to polarity integration, now you can have your structure without killing the aliveness, and you can have the aliveness without overwhelming the structure. You can have a grounded emotional experience. You can have calm intensity. You can have purpose with softness. You can have non-reactivity without numbness. And the reason I said shadow work is partially what gives integration is because obviously if you want polarity integration, you need to access both poles fully. So shadow integration allows you full access to both of your masculine and feminine poles and functions. However, for polarity integration to occur, you not only need access, you need also stabilization. So healing is required but not sufficient. Integration is required but not sufficient. Besides access, besides healing, you require practice. You require stability that can only come with experience. And this integration works in the same manner when it comes to relational polarity integration. If you have let's say a classic example of a man and a woman, they can have synchrony between them, but if they are not by themselves integrated in themselves, that synchrony will not last long. In order to have polarity integration on a relational level, both people need to be polarity integrated themselves. Otherwise, you can have, again, a classic man-woman scenario, both attracted to each other, both with chemistry, finishing each other's sentences, and so on. But then one says or does something, and the other gets offended or something. I don't know. That's popular. Why? Because the other one, or both of them, don't have polarity integration, meaning access to both energies in themselves and stability. So there's shadow work required there. So you can have synchrony between two people, but without polarity integration, that synchrony, that attraction, is short-lived. You can also have polarity integration in both individuals, which leads to integration in the relationship, but without synchrony. If both, for example, are mainly polarized to the same side, to the feminine or to the masculine side. But when you do have different sides being expressed in the relationship and they do not collapse, they do not collapse, meaning they have polarity integration, now that relationship can deepen and the attraction can sustain itself, and that system or this relationship can become anti-fragile and prolong over time. And the same thing is true on a societal level, of course. The more integration in their poles each individual have, the more stable the society will be, instead of being overly ordered, which stifles progress, or overly chaotic. If there's reason and empathy, for example, but none of those overwhelm the other, if both can work together, this is polarity integration on a societal scale. So the basic formula for this polarity integration would be something like shadow access or shadow integration in order to have access to all the pillars of both poles, and then structural development of those pillars, the 4 pillars of the masculine and the feminine, which we went over previously. And this means basically a lot of introspection, a lot of acceptance, and a lot of experience.